the purpose for a reference point is we ultimately have to send a surveyor out there to survey your parcel, and they have to be able to locate it when they go out there. So what we are asking for is we are asking you to identify a known point. So with monuments, we know exactly where those are out in the field, right? So we are asking you to locate a known point and then give us the distance and direction from right here where I know where it is, that distance and direction over to my parcel is effectively what we're asking for. So there's a variety of different options for monuments. So this is a primary monument right here. It is a aluminum 2.5-inch cap, 3-inch cap monument. And these are going to be located on the majority of those parcels that you see located as an ASLS survey. So they should all have primary monuments. Specifically, when it's in the ground, when they're actually set, they're going to look about like this. So they're going to be on a large aluminum post. They're going to be pounded into the ground. They're going to be sticking up generally about 6 inches or so. Depending on the area, sometimes the vegetation grows up, in and around them. And a lot of times they get frost jacked up out of the soil and they tip over. And so they might be kind of laying on the ground. But not to worry. So when you're looking for a monument, oftentimes you will see these bearing tree tags, and they will be attached to the trees in this picture over here on the right. So what a bearing tree tag is this tells you the information on here about where this monument is at, and it gives you the distance and direction from this monument over to, from this bearing tree tag over to the monument. So for an illustration purpose, if there's a monument standing out there in the field, and I find this bearing tree tag, and I'm going to step over here a little bit. I can't find that monument walking through the snow, but I'm standing over here at a tree. This bearing tree tag should be facing that monument. So if I go over here and I look at this bearing tree tag is going to tell me the direction and the distance. Generally, for BLM monuments, it's going to list the distance in chains, which is, links. 66 links to 100 feet. But it'll list the direction and the distance from this bearing tree to that monument. So this one would say that it's that's going to be 6 feet at southeast. I don't know. I'm not from here. I think that's about right. I know the mountains are east anyway. So it'll list the distance and direction from that. There are generally going to be 3 of these bearing tree tags on each of the for each one of these primary monuments. So if you kind of can find one of them, that'll get you pretty close. You can kind of narrow it down fairly well. If you can find 2 of them, you're getting awful close. 3 of them, you got it nailed. So preferably find the monument. If you can't find the monument, you can use this bearing tree tag, but give us the information off the bearing tree tag. One thing to note with this, the information on here is generally just scratched in. Anyway, so it may be a little bit difficult to read. Rub some dirt on it, that might help. But get all the information that you can off of this. Specifically, once you locate a monument, if you locate a monument, one thing that's very helpful, getting photographs of monuments, being whatever bright, shiny aluminum, can be fairly difficult. So you may want to get an etching or a rubbing of that monument. So you can lay a piece of paper over it, or you take your nice handy write in the rain notebook here, and you lay that over the top, run over that with your field pencil, and that'll give you pretty good information. So that will show up fairly well, and it's going to be better than a photograph as far as the ability to get the information off of that. So you can just tear this out and turn this in with your lease application. So a couple of other monuments that you're likely to find in the field are going to be BLM monuments. Oftentimes these are going to be your little brass cap monuments here. Or you might find your secondary monuments. The area that I think you might find those in this year would be the Snake Lake area. There's the large group of parcels, the subdivision up at the northern end. So likely you will find there'll be a few of these primary monuments out there, and then it'll list these secondary monuments will be out there. They'll all be listed on the survey plat as to what they are. So these are just going to be on a rebar post pounded into the ground, and these are generally a little bit closer to the ground. So anyway, it gives you a variety of options for finding a monument as a reference point. You can use a monument from an adjacent parcel as one of your corners, and you just list that as as the corner there. So the first step is, now I'm going to put it this way. You do not have to find a reference point before you start. You know, if you want to go out there and start your staking your parcel first, get your corner posts in, and then find a reference point, that's fine. But we ask for it in the reference point because this is how somebody, or ultimately the surveyor, would find it. They're going to go to this known location. Then from that known location, the distance and direction that you give us to your parcel. So that's why we list it first. So when you're filling this information in, go out there, mark down where your reference point, indicate if it is a Alaska State Land Survey monument, if it is going to be a BLM monument, possibly an NGS monument. There's a few options. Anyway, mark that down on there as to what monument it is, and describe it fully. If you're unable to use the locate a monument, you can create your own monument. Yeah. So you can create you can create your own reference point. So pick a location that is permanent and prominent, something that is, a large outcropping that sticks out. A confluence of a river. Select a tree at the confluence of like whatever that creek is, the main river, something like that. A known location that we can point to the junction of this river, this creek. From this point, flag a tree up and down. Get it bright, pink, yellow, whatever. Paint it. Mark it RP. Put a plate on there just like you would with your corner post. Anyway, so mark that up so we know specifically that's that location. If you are in an area with other surveyed parcels in the area, we prefer that you actually get a monument. If you're a couple miles away or a long distance away from an area that with an accessible monument, then you may have to create your own reference point. So you can use your reference point as one of your corners. So you can use that as your corner number one, and it lists there in there that it is one of your corners, or your corner number one specifically. You can also use an adjacent piece of private property if you're staking right up next to it. You can use that as their corner number one. You can use, if you're sharing one whole line with them, you can use their other monument as your corner number two effectively. We still ask that you put a post in there for your own. But yeah, you can use other monuments out there in the field, or you can use them as part of the parcel. Before we actually get into setting corner posts, we'll discuss the process of staking just a little bit. So when we say that we talk about doing the reference point first, and as I noted, you don't have to find your reference point to begin with. If you're going to be going out there in advance of staking, you can certainly locate your reference point before you actually start staking the parcel. I think that's a great idea. That might save you a lot of time on that day, or the series of days when you're going out there and starting to stake your parcel. So when you start staking your parcel, start out, put your corner posts in the ground, start, whatever, brushing a flag in between the corner posts, and record that information. The instruction is that an individual may not stake across a brushed and flagged line, and there's the specific instruction. So the brushing and the flagging of lines is very critical in that regard. Depending on how you do it, whatever, there may be some implications, but I would recommend starting out with your corner post in there, and then, brushing and flagging between the lines on your corner post. So what we're looking for a corner post is we're looking for something that's going to be highly visible, right? So we want something that when other stakers are out there in the field, they're going to come across this and say, hey, that's somebody else's corner post. Or that when we send the surveyors out there in the field, they're going to go to your reference point, distance and direction from here to your corner number one, and they're going to go over there and they're going to walk out there and, hey, that's that reference, or that's that corner post right there. So a couple things to consider when you're doing this. We are looking for something that's going to be tall. So we're asking something for 4 feet high, right? We're looking for it to be able to be visible in various different seasons. So, whatever, through the snow, in the summertime, whatever, through leaf out, everything. We want this to be visible. So think tall. Also think dark. Whatever, we want something that people can see when you're going out there looking, maybe wandering around by headlamp, that they're going to be able to find this out there in the field. So something that people are going to be able to see throughout the seasons. Additionally, as a condition of the lease, it is a condition that you maintain your brush and flag lines and your corner posts throughout that entire 3-year leasing period. So once you get done staking the parcel, you may still have to go out there during that period of time. You may want to go out there and use your parcel anyway, but you're going to have to potentially go out in the field and maintain those brush and flag lines. But if you're going to be staking during the winter time, that's great. It's oftentimes a lot easier to get out there and get in and around the area. Plus, there's a whole lot less mosquitoes too. That's a benefit. But when you brush and flag your lines and when you set your corner posts in the winter, there are a couple of complications. The ground's going to be frozen, so driving something in there is going to be a little bit more difficult. If you're going to be using either a Carson post or T-post, you're going to have to bring something to pound them in there. In many cases, you might just have to plan on lashing that to a tree. So, bring some baling wire or something like that to where you can adequately attach that to something that's going to be vertical. If you stick it in the snow and pile up a whole lot of snow around that, as soon as the snow melts, it's going to go over. So, I would recommend getting something that's going to be sturdy, something that's going to stand the test of time, and something that's going to last for basically 4 years. The entire staking period, 3 years of leasing, and there's a potential that there might be an extension of the lease, but you need to maintain that as a condition of your lease. So, brushing and flagging your boundary lines. I mentioned at the beginning of this a sandbag. This is what a sandbag is. This is probably one of the greatest, this is my favorite, I'll put it that way, brushing tools. Those things, they will go through a 4-inch alder like nothing. They've got replaceable blades. It's an axe handle instead of just, but of a knife handle, something very, whatever, very sturdy to hold on to. They're great for, just limbing out the dead wood on a spruce tree all the way up to clearing through alders. They're fantastic. I really like them. You probably picked up on that. So, so what we're looking for when we're doing a brush and flag boundary line is that we just are looking for line of sight. We want somebody to be able to, once again, walk across your boundary line and say, this is a line. And that's effectively all we're looking for. So, and when I say that's all we're looking for, that's all we want, right? So we don't want you to clear out a nice 5-10 foot wide highway going through there. So, and there's a couple reasons for that. One, when you're looking, so specifically what we're looking for is that, you brush out, clear out all the kind of overhead brush, flag it very well to where you can see the flagging on the trees, flag on both sides of that brush line. That way it's visible, you can stand on the line, you can see, whatever 5 flags up in front of you, but you can see line of sight. We're not asking that you be able to stand at the post and see your other posts 330, 660, or 1,230 feet away. So you don't need to see that far. You can leave timber in there, trees that are larger than 4 inches, you can leave them in the path. That's fine. Flag them, right there in the path, because we know that that's part of that brush line. When you're out there, whatever, as you're going along, take your nice sandpick and, whatever, blaze the trees a little bit, paint the trees, whatever, just mark the line really well. But we want clear line of sight, but we don't want a large trail for a couple different reasons. One, as noted before, if you clear a nice 5-10 foot wide trail along your boundary line, if you build it, they will come, potentially. So you might be constructing a trail that other people are going to use, which if you're fine with that's okay. But the problem is when you go out there and stake a parcel, the surveyor is going to make certain adjustments to your parcel based on acreage requirements, based on programmatic requirements, and there's a chance that your boundary lines might move. And so when you go out there and you stake something in the field, we have to make an adjustment for the programmatic requirements. That nice 5 foot wide trail or that highway that you brushed around your parcel, maybe inside of your parcel, maybe outside of your parcel, that may be subject to change. So the point being is that don't brush something that, whatever, that's not going to be there permanently. We can't guarantee that it's always going to be in that spot or exactly that spot. So we want you to tie flagging at least every 20 feet. If you can see this boundary line here, there's a nice cleared line of sight, going down here. There's flagging every, whatever, 4 or 5 feet, just, single wrap of flagging tied around the trees. You can see that pretty clearly, staying on the line, you know where it's at. If you're going to be flagging along a trail or a boundary, if your center line is going to be if your boundary is going to be the center line of that trail, flag that trail. Just on the edge of the trail. You don't need to flag right down the center of the trail. Just flag the edge of that trail. If you're going to be flagging along a water body, right? If there is, there's the requirement for flagging along a setback is that, so you go up to that 100 foot, 200 foot, 300 foot setback, whatever it may be, flag that line 200 feet, 300 feet back from it. The surveyor is ultimately going to be determining where that's at. It's going to be very difficult to maintain a line, following the meander of that water body, that 200 or 300 foot back or whatever it may be. That's probably going to be fairly difficult. Do your best, measure it out. but, flag that boundary. If there's going to be, if you're going to be flagging along just a public stream that your boundary is going to go up to, flag all along the boundary of that water line. If there's a small stream that's potentially going to be used for access, or whatever, and there's a setback from specifically that small stream, you may want to just flag periodically along that stream. Although you're going to have the flagging right along the setback, just to let people know that there's a parcel back there effectively. So that's probably going to help just for letting other stakers know that there's something already going on in the area. So if you're going to be flagging in areas that are not very well vegetated, there's a splinter in that thing. So if you're going to be flagging along areas that are not very well vegetated, so you're not going to be able to have alders or spruce trees or something, plan on bringing some lath. This is going to help a lot in the pre-planting. So even areas that, if you're going to be planning on staking in, whatever, Dillinger River, Half Cabin Lake, whatever, or Catalina, areas that are, large portion of the Snake Lake, the areas where there are suitable trees to be staking in, there's a lot of clearings out there that your line may be running 100 feet across the clearing. And when the snow's out there, it's covering the vegetation, you're not going to be able to flag it. So plan on bringing something that's going to stick up. Maybe, even though you plan on bringing out corner posts, you might want to bring a couple of carcinite posts, whatever, just to use for flagging through those clearings. Ultimately, something that the entirety of that line, you can identify specifically where that's at. Again, as I noted before, avoid using either green or blue flagging when you're going down that line. We didn't have any East Fork fast stakers in here, right? Okay, so again, just to note for some of these other areas, it's probably going to be less likely, but you might have to get a little creative at certain portions of the line depending on where your parcels are at. So